Good evening from the National Weather Service in Jackson. My name is Steve Wilkinson. I'm the warning coordination meteorologist here. What that means is I go out and work a lot with the public in preparedness and speaking groups and things of that nature. So normally, a lot of times we're preparing for tornadoes, but in the last week we've been preparing for wintry weather. It seems as though this is about the fourth winter weather event coming up tomorrow that we've had over the last week. So might be getting used to winter weather, but we got one more to go, and looks like a pretty interesting storm tomorrow. So we thought we would have this session here to give you some information on what we're thinking and provide some forecast maps with impacts, and then allow you the opportunity to ask some questions. So send your questions in through Twitter or Facebook, and we'll try and get to them toward the end of this session. So we're going to move on to a presentation here that shows what we expect for tomorrow. Should load here shortly, and there it is. This is our forecast area, and it takes in about roughly 2/3 of Mississippi, from about Hattiesburg and Natchez in the south, going north to the Highway 82 corridor, Greenville, Greenwood, Columbia Columbus, in the north. We also have Cleveland, Grenada, just north of those areas. So we also have parts of southeast Arkansas, a couple counties there. So I don't know if anyone's on from there, but if you are, we'd love to hear from you. And we have some parishes in northeast Louisiana across the Mississippi River from central Mississippi. So that's our forecast area. This particular map is showing the expectations for tomorrow. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, we have, of course, we've had a series of storms over the last few days, dropping a lot of rainfall, but also a lot of wintry weather in various areas. So this is the last in a series of storms to come across. So with that in mind, let me kind of explain what's in front of you. You see the colors yellow, orange, and red, and the yellow indicates what we call a limited risk. There is some risk of winter weather in that area. It's lower than the orange, which in turn is also lower than the red. So just with that in mind, we'll move forward. Now, I'm going to start from the north, where the more significant snowfall is expected. And just by the way, the timing on this is it's going to be moving into northeast Louisiana and crossing the Mississippi River, even into Mississippi, as 6, 7 o'clock in the morning comes around. So this is going to move very rapidly. It's going to develop very rapidly to our west tonight, spread into the area, and create some wintry conditions. Where you see the colors here, to the south and east, say where it's Hattiesburg, and the colors are the area that's blank around and north and west of Hattiesburg. We're expecting primarily rainfall. But again, starting in the north with the red, that is an area where we expect primarily snowfall tomorrow. There may be a little bit of sleet mixed in with that, but the way the system is tracking, it looks like we could see primarily snow, and to be honest, could be fairly heavy at times once it gets going. We may see visibilities drop down to about half at times, which is some pretty heavy snow. May cause accumulation of approaching an inch an hour type snowfall in that area. And so Greenville, Greenwood, Grenada, over toward Starkville, certainly you would see conditions deteriorating during the morning hours and really hitting their worst during the late morning and afternoon hours. So again, total accumulations up in that red area could be in the 3 to 6 inch range, and it certainly wouldn't be out of the question to see a few locally heavier amounts. So we're going to talk a little bit about safety here in a few minutes, but just as a little preliminary on that, just obviously you want to be very careful. If you don't have to go out tomorrow, that's an area where you probably just want to try to stay in and get through it, and then Thursday looks like it's a much nicer day. Coming a little bit south, taking in areas from northeast Louisiana, Bastrop, Lake Providence, moving across Yazoo City, Kosciusko, and over toward Columbus and Macon. We have an area there in the orange, and the orange is certainly an area that we have concern of, not quite as bad as the red. In this area, there may be some mixture with sleet as well, which may cut down a little bit on the accumulations, but 2 to 4 inches across our part of the world, which we're showing here in the elevated area, is pretty significant. So certainly 2 to 4 inches, it could come down very hard for a while, as I mentioned for the red area. So again, in kind of a similar idea, the safety rules for that area is just keep an eye on the weather. It's going to be moving in very quickly during the morning tomorrow, getting heavier toward late morning into the afternoon, and ending by the evening hours. So that's the orange area called elevated. Now the interesting area, the most challenging part of the forecast is actually what we've depicted in the yellow here, under limited. And limited, the reason it's kind of what we call maybe marginal in a sense. It's not the exact word we use, but in a sense you've got rain to the south, snow to the north, and this yellow area is more of the transition area. And to be honest, the most difficult part of this forecast. Within that, we have various computer models that we use that are showing slight variations in where the temperatures in the atmosphere will be cold enough to support snow versus not cold enough to support snow. And so those are things that we're going to have to fine-tune as we go through this evening and the overnight. Just so you know, the National Weather Service operates 24 hours a day. There'll be forecasters pouring through the information all night tonight, trying to get the best forecast out there we can. Certainly possible that this could be adjusted this evening and overnight. Right now, this is kind of what we're thinking. In that yellow area, you could see any type of precipitation throughout the day. So we're talking Meridian, Jackson, Vicksburg, down even close to the Natchez area and adjacent areas of northeast and east central Louisiana. We could start out in the morning. One of the interesting things that happened from the freezing rain last night and the sleet that occurred yesterday afternoon and last night, if you looked at the high temperatures and even the current temperatures right now, there's an area in the Delta region of Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas, and also including just outside the Delta around Natchez and even over toward the Jackson area, where very little, if any, of the ice that accumulated in the trees and on the ground last night melted today. So the temperatures are sitting right around 32 degrees. So even though in the upper levels of the atmosphere in some of these areas it's going to warm up some, maybe not to support snow, it may very well be some freezing rain in this area. So as the precipitation streaks in tomorrow morning around the Natchez area, we may be looking at temperatures close to freezing, and you may get at least a couple hours of freezing rain before a gradual warm-up occurs. In Vicksburg and Jackson, it may take a little bit longer, same for Meridian. But again, even if it warms up above 32, you may actually change it over to some sleet or snow as it cools in the upper levels. So it's a very complex forecast. It's always difficult in this part of the country. Southern snowstorms, southern winter storms are very difficult to pinpoint the exact details. We're always kind of trying to find that rain-snow line or that mixed rain line, and tomorrow is no exception. So I would encourage you strongly, in all of these areas, but especially in that yellow area, to pay attention to the updates in the forecast, because it could trend warmer and be mostly rain, or it could trend colder and be a lot more wintry precipitation. So with that in mind, we're actually going to, when we take the questions at the end, we're going to come back to this, and I'm going to use this as a reference. But for now, we're going to go through a couple slides that are kind of just some safety tips, and we'll just cover through that, as this is a little bit of an unusual situation. We see this every few years, but we're not dealing with this every day. So I just want to go through a few of these things to make sure that people really know what to do. And hopefully it's not too late to do some of this. I guess you'd have to run out this evening and do a few of these things and purchase some things if you didn't have it already. But certainly, even if you don't go out and purchase things, you can at least kind of follow some of these principles. So this slide is geared towards staying safe at home or work during a winter storm, which we are calling tomorrow a winter storm. We certainly want to have extra food and water and I guess the kind of joke around here is go get your bread and milk. That's the same concept. Basically, have those things that if you had to, get by without being able to get out for a day or two, you would want to have that kind of stuff. Maybe further to the north where 6 inches is possible, then certainly that's a possibility. If we get a substantial amount of freezing rain, that could be a possibility as well. So, not saying it's real likely in all areas, but we definitely want you to just be aware of that. High energy food, things of that nature that are listed there, a good idea. Always a good idea to have flashlight and extra batteries available. I find sometimes we run out of batteries, and flashlight's no good if you hadn't got any batteries. Hopefully electricity doesn't go out, but there were at least some power outages last night with the icing in the Jackson-Vicksburg area, kind of in that region, and so certainly we want to be careful. If you happen to use a candle, just be careful. We don't encourage it, but understand that you got to be able to see. We encourage, of course, NOAA weather radio, that you have a battery backup if your power goes out. That's, in some ways, the internet's great, cell phones are great. We encourage all that kind of stuff, but there are scenarios where the infrastructure goes down, and sometimes where the radio is still broadcasting, you can at least get information that way. So, and don't anticipate it being that bad tomorrow, but again, just something to keep in mind for tomorrow and the future. If you have a fireplace, wood stove, make sure you have a good bit of firewood. It's probably a little too late for that at this point, but extra medicines, baby items, depending on your station in life and where you're at, those are good things to have around. And basically, these next tip is basically just to keep your house warm. Try to be energy efficient, not have to run your heat or the fire constantly. Basically, keep the heat contained within the area that you're in. And finally, we want to make sure our pets are taken care of with proper food, water, and shelter. And maybe, they probably like running around, dogs particularly like running around outside in the snow, but they don't want to be out there too long. So, okay, moving on, staying safe in the car. If we encourage you, if you can, if you're in the area that it's really active, to not get out if you can absolutely avoid it. We know that you have jobs and things you have to do, so if you're unable to avoid getting out, just and postpone travel, just make sure you've done a few things to winterize your vehicle, car battery, antifreeze, things of that nature. I lived up north for a while and had a much more harsher winter than we have around here. We always made sure we had a few blankets in the car, hats, gloves, just kind of stored in the car in case we got stranded or something like that. Some good suggestions here. Let someone know where you're going just in case you don't get there on time. Keep the gas tank filled up. If you encounter sleet or freezing rain, be extremely cautious. I think that's one thing. Hopefully, if we hadn't learned that before, we've seen that this week. We've had a lot of, in various places around the region. It hasn't been the same every day, but a lot of different places have gotten the freezing rain. And I know in the Jackson area last Friday morning was just a very light freezing rain event, but caused tremendous backups for 18-wheelers turning over and blocking interstates. So bridges and overpasses are the places that freeze first on the roadways. So the road can seem wet. You may be driving along quickly, thinking you're doing great, and all of a sudden you hit that icy patch and you're going too fast. So as you certainly want to slow down anyway, but as you approach that bridge or overpass, I would definitely go slow. Don't slam on your brakes, and don't make sudden turns. So, as mentioned, there, blankets, having flashlights are a great idea. Water's a good idea as well. So, if you do get stuck on the road, and I have done this before once when I lived in Ohio. I did not do all these things, so I need to learn this myself. Keep the car going for heat at least every so often, but you definitely don't want to pull off the road and maybe have your exhaust pipe blocked by snow or anything of that nature, because that could cause carbon monoxide poisoning. And you want to be visible. Somebody is eventually going to come along. Hopefully you're able to call 911 or a friend or something to come help you out. But if for some reason you're stranded and you can't, then you'll want to make sure someone coming by can whether it's your flashing lights or something else, just make sure that you're visible and not. This could be particularly dangerous at night if you're parked too close on the road and someone can't really see you. So use some caution there. And I guess the last one there, from time to time, move your arms and legs. We're not really looking at extreme temperatures like below zero or anything like that. But, for us in the South, we're not used to bitterly cold temperatures, and it probably will be in the upper 20s or so. And if you even got stranded like tomorrow night after the snow falls, it's going to drop off pretty good with the fresh snow on the ground for those particular areas. So if you were stranded, you definitely want to take those blankets, but move around, keep your blood circulating, don't let yourself get frostbite or anything of that nature. So with that in mind, that's it for the safety tips, and we're going to take some questions now. We've already got a few questions that have come in from Twitter and Facebook, so hopefully we got a few. And so with that, if we could put the graphic back up to kind of just play off of, I want to make sure that everyone has something graphical to look at besides just looking at me. And so when we answer the questions, I can talk about specific areas. So, and there it is. So the first question I have, I'm going to read the question as we go along. Appreciate you sending in a question from the Eupora Fire Department. They tweeted, how rapidly will driving conditions deteriorate within the Webster County area? Okay, that's a great question. Webster County is in that red area that we expect 3 to 6 inches of snow, maybe locally higher. I would say during the mid-morning hours or so, especially going toward noon, conditions will deteriorate very rapidly. This is the kind of storm system. It's not going to last for 3 days or anything like that. It's probably going to be coming down precipitation for 10 hours or so, and out of those 10 hours you may get 6 inches of snow. So it's got to snow pretty hard to get 6 inches of snow in that limited amount of time. So you will probably go from nothing to getting pretty bad within a fairly short amount of time. And so if you're going out, don't be tricked. Make sure you check the radar. Make sure you're aware of what's going on, because you definitely don't want to get caught out in it. Roads can become very slick very quickly. It's been cold for days now. I really don't anticipate that this is going to have any trouble accumulating on the roads very quickly and right away. So thank you, Webster. Excuse me, who was that fire department? Sorry. Eupora Fire Department. Thank you. Thank you, Eupora Fire Department, for that. Okay, so here we have the next question is from Brendan, and Brendan tweets the HRRR, which is a computer model, is indicating faster approach of precipitation into East Mississippi tomorrow. Thoughts on how this affects accumulation? Over the last couple of events that we've had, we've noticed what we're in, and this is a little bit of meteorology talk here, so bear with me, but we have a very strong jet stream. That's the winds high in the atmosphere that are kind of blowing from the southwestern United States across our area. And it's continuing to bring these disturbances in the upper atmosphere across the area. And the cold air is in place, the moisture is pulled up from the Gulf of Mexico, and that's why we're getting several repeated rounds of wintry precipitation. So the HRRR is one of the models that show it moving faster than some of our more global models that are for the whole United States. The HRRR is more on a local scale. Here, our current thinking is that the faster scenario of the HRRR is probably right, and what we're basing that on is the last few systems have come in several hours quicker than some of the global models showed, than what our forecast initially anticipated. So we're going to be looking at the HRRR very closely, combined with the global models tonight to kind of get a feel for that. As far as what the impacts of that would be, my main concern with it moving in faster would be for those areas around Natchez, a few counties around there that are, early in the morning, still close to the freezing mark, if not below it. That instead of that starting out as rain, it actually starts out as freezing rain. You have several hours of freezing rain. Of course, at that time of the morning, that impacts schools, people going to work, rush hour, and things of that nature. So the faster it comes in, the more it's going to impact the rush hour time period. And it's going to have a, it's kind of one of those things where when school decisions are made at 5 and 6 in the morning, if it's already precipitating and you're seeing what you're getting, then a lot of times that leads to a wiser decision, just because you're not going, well, nothing's happening, we're going to school, and then as soon as you get there, bad things start happening. So in that sense, the faster timing may lead to hopefully some folks decide not to get out and give it a go tomorrow when they probably should. As far as accumulations, it may, it's one of those things where we use ranges in forecasting. So 3 to 6 pretty much covers it. And like I said earlier, it's not out of the question. It could be locally higher than that in a couple spots. The faster it moves in, sometimes means it just moves out faster. So you maybe just move the time frame up a little bit. But sometimes when it moves in faster, it's actually a longer duration. So those are another one of the many forecast challenges that we have here at the National Weather Service to try to do that. So we'll be checking on that with the faster onset, that whether that's going to add up into higher amounts or just simply be a faster moving system. So appreciate that question. Okay, now we have a question, let's see, from Thomas, and he tweets, how certain are you that the low will not track further south and shift the snow further south along the Interstate 20 corridor? Okay, that's a great question. If you could put the map back up for me there. That is part of the reason we have that I-20 corridor in the yellow, is that we have a lot of uncertainty. In weather forecasting, and you can see it with that second star down there just above the scale. It says greater uncertainty exists in limited area monitor later forecast. The reason we talk about uncertainty in meteorology is just not always clear-cut what's going to happen. Now, if it's a rain event, the impact of the uncertainty isn't nearly as high as the impact of an uncertainty with winter storms. Okay, so we'll be watching the computer models coming in. They have actually trended. They've had some trends south and then trends back north. So trying to find the exact correct solution is always a challenge. So we're not entirely certain that it won't impact areas further south. However, at least in a higher way than we have depicted here. But we feel the highest probability, based off the information that we have up to this point, points at the areas that we have highlighted in the orange and the red. Forecasts can always change, and we will be monitoring that. But we do appreciate that question. And again, that's a good opportunity to just explain that forecasting is not, and people know this, it's not an exact science. There's a lot of discussions among meteorologists that go on to try to figure out, is this the right solution? Is it going to be a little colder than this model is showing? Is it going to be warmer? What is my experience where I've seen this happen before? What does this pattern overall suggest? So there's a lot that goes into forecasting the weather, and certainly this one's going to challenge us and continue to do so well into the day tomorrow. So hopefully we'll find that we did pretty well in the end. So appreciate that question, Thomas. Okay, we got OEM Rebel Nation, and he tweeted, should I plan on taking my kids to school tomorrow in Jackson or make alternate arrangements? Yeah, back to the map here. Yeah, again, Jackson is one of those tough spots, and I've done a number of interviews with media today, and I've also talked to groups of emergency managers that were making decisions on the state emergency management level, even like the governor's office, and that's been the question over and over again. What should I expect in Jackson? And it's a difficult thing. We may very well see freezing rain, snow, and sleet tomorrow, and it may be brief periods of all of them. And at the same time, it may be mostly rain or maybe mostly freezing rain. We are a little concerned that since it's already right at the freezing mark, that freezing rain is going to be a problem. As far as answering your question, I would wait till tomorrow morning to find out, one, are schools going to be in session. If it's above freezing, they'll probably be in session. If it's below freezing and it's freezing rain and snow and sleet are expected later, there's a good chance that there may not be school. So, you know, I would make the decision a little bit later in the day. Excuse me, I had to get a drink there. So, certainly I would, you know, again, you may not be making the decision, but making just contingency plans is always a good idea in a situation like this. What would I do if I get up and it's 31 and freezing rain? Or what would I do if I get up and it's 33 and the weather service says it's going to be rain all day? Well, then, you know, it's a regular day. So, and that's the kind of thing we're dealing with. A degree or two difference is going to make all the difference in the impacts with this storm. So, appreciate the question there, OAM Rebel Nation. Do we have any more? Okay, next question. Belinda says, will we have sleet or just snow? Where? Greenville. Okay. Belinda is in Greenville. Appreciate that clarification. In Greenville, I'm going to say right now it's going to be primarily snow. I can't rule out a little bit of sleet, but part of the reason we're going in that red area, the higher accumulation amounts, is we expect it to be almost completely snow. Can't rule out a brief period of sleet, but you know, there's a good chance that it's going to be snow up there. So that will, you know, snow accumulates to a greater depth than sleet does. So that's part of the reason the numbers are pretty high. If for some reason it got a little bit warmer and it turned more towards sleet, you would still have a mess on your hands there in the Greenville area, but it would not accumulate to the depth that we have mentioned here. And that's, again, going back to that uncertainty we talked about earlier. You know, forecasting the weather, just a degree change, say, in the certain level of the atmosphere can make all the difference between an all snow event and a lot of sleet mixing in. So right now we're thinking snow in Greenville. We'll fine tune that as we go along. So thanks, Belinda, for that question. Rhonda has a question here. Is it going to be more snow and less freezing rain around Bolivar County? Okay, similar question there. Bolivar County had a lot of freezing rain and sleet yesterday afternoon and last night, so perhaps that's where the source of the question's coming from. Belinda, Rhonda, this time around it looks more like a snow event for Bolivar County than the ice and sleet event that you had over the last couple days. So again, you may very well see 3 to 6 inches like we have shown here on this map. And it really, of all places, Bolivar County, all places in our service area, Bolivar County has probably the highest chance of staying all snow. So with that in mind, I just wanted to point out while we're waiting for the next question is, you know, if people are in northern Mississippi, particularly north of Bolivar County, north of Grenada, up that way, there's the next office up there is the Weather Service office in Memphis, and so they forecast for North Mississippi. Just kind of going around to our northwest and of southeast Arkansas, there's an office in Little Rock. Both of those have pretty high snow amounts forecast as well in the 2 to 6 inch range, kind of just north of that area. So we were able to coordinate that forecast really well with those offices, and so if you're just outside of our area to the north, you know, it's not gonna just stop right there. It's going to continue north to, you know, roughly the Memphis area and well into Arkansas as well. We also have an office to the west in Shreveport, and we have that coordinated with them across North Louisiana, snow falling in those areas. And then to the south, we have offices in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and Slidell, Louisiana, and then Mobile, and of course, bordering us down in those areas, it's an all-rain event, so no issues as far as winter. On the east side, Birmingham has an office, and we've coordinated with them, snow continuing eastward and northeastward from this point into central and north Alabama. So that is what's surrounding us. Okay, so with that in mind, that's the questions that we're having. I'm gonna do a quick summary wrap up again. Precipitation breaking out late tonight to our west and spreading rapidly across our area during the early morning hours tomorrow. The red area we believe is mostly snow, 3 to 6 inches. The orange area more of a 2 to 4. Maybe it mixes a little bit in that area, but again, it's a good bit of snow. The yellow area limited is one of those areas where it could be freezing rain, could be a period of sleet or snow, and then then again, that's the transition area that's the most difficult to forecast. And then further south and east, Hattiesburg, Brookhaven, McGee, down toward Columbia, just all right. So with that in mind, I appreciate you joining us tonight. Those of you that were able to do it, we really appreciate the questions. Kind of gave us an opportunity to touch on a few things that we could clarify, make sure, and I hope this has been helpful for you. We'll probably do more of these kind of things in the future. Just thinking out loud here. Maybe for severe weather events, if they're coming up, we can talk about that kind of stuff. So keep your eyes out for these kind of things. And with that, we'll say good night from the National Weather Service in Jackson.